Hello, everybody. This is me, Chris, and George. We're doing our once a week thing where Chris gives us his 9 dawn wisdom, 8 dawn wisdom, whatever that is. And today he's gonna be giving George 4 stones. Now, last time he beat George at 6, which we all found very educational. Today, 4 was just kind of the figure we came up with. We'll be seeing some good things. And George will be on silent. And Chris will be telling us his thoughts, and I'll be asking questions. George, should I cover everything?
I think so. I'll see you later. Have fun.
Okay, see you later, George. And George is back there saying, I'm actually going to listen to everything.
That's fine. I'll just have to make sure that I feed false information to the crowd. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so 4 stones, I find it takes a slightly different handicap strategy, at least for me, to play 4 stones. Like I mentioned last time playing on 6, when I have the stone at Q10 and D10, it's a little bit easier for me to create a whole board plan. With 4 stones, we don't really have the 2 side stones already to work with. We can't engineer anything on the board to be bad to worry sort of up front. So I actually have to wait for black to make a real mistake.
Okay.
Oh, it's going for the pincer right off the bat. Okay, settle.
Arrogant so-and-so.
I mean, I'm okay with this, Joseki. Part of the handicap strategy for me stays the same in that I just try to take some of the corners quickly, like 2, and then get a position on the side of the center. If I'm patient, he should theoretically make a mistake at some point. Here, he's free to enclose any corner he wishes. Depending on which corner he encloses, I will invade another one. Likely one of the bottom 2 corners. I really don't want to invade the top left at 3-3 because it gives him an easy direction with his group on the top side. I'm just going to enclose that one. Okay, then we will.
Okay, we're noticing that you're not concerned about black developing a center.
Yeah, not offhand. If he plays any move in Gote to block the middle, you can't see my cursor on the screen. But if he makes anything to block the center in Gote, I can try to make whatever move he plays a bad move or bad placement through tactics. So I'm less worried about him going for the Moyo approach, and that has to do a lot with the fact that I'm just in general more comfortable with dealing with Moyos. I'll try to be conscientious of the time this time as well. Try not to push it over the typical hour.
No big problem.
Yeah, so far we can say George has played perfect, no mistakes.
Uh-huh. I've been finding my Katabon games with him just so exciting.
He certainly doesn't shy away from things. That pincer made a statement right in the beginning of the game. It's like, you know, I've got 4 handicap stones and a lot of power. I'm going to use it. Okay. We'll see, you know. Oh, this one. Okay. I can't say it's a mistake, but I'm not sure if I would have been enclosed this corner personally as black. Like, to me, the bottom right corner seemed more attractive. Now that he's going for this upper side, I think it's a good time to start breaking it. I'm just going to lightly press this down, make sure this doesn't get out of hand. And the exchanges that I make up here are quite light. So for those that are wondering, this L16 by itself is not an important stone. It just sort of represents white getting something, the top center, to keep black from growing out of control. So white might choose to sacrifice the individual stone for the greater good, depending on how black answers. If black does something, for example, like push at Q14, build the wall to the right, and then cap, it could be harder to sacrifice the one stone. But
yeah,
in this case, he didn't choose to do that. He chose to push from behind, which, okay. I will jump. This one's a bit easy on white. When you have 4 stones, I kind of prefer to play a little bit harder. But certainly I can't say it's bad. And now we have the option again to take Sente. The 3 white stones have already done their job in the center of the board. The typical light shape to fly away would be J13 to prevent the cut. But it's by no means the most urgent point on the board. If black does cut, it's only going to represent possibly capturing 1 stone. White's still going to be able to escape to the center. So I'm going to follow up in the bottom left now.
I love this move when I play white.
Mm-hmm. And here I could choose H2, I could choose B3. Both are fine.
I've actually never seen H2 before.
Mm-hmm.
I play B3. I always play B. I've never not played B3 because I know it bothers black being undercut, you know.
Yeah.
But then he has the outside Sente.
Right.
So I'll keep this in mind.
Yeah, this one is namely to get ahead of any like G4 push or H5 knight's move. For me, if black Hane's at B3, it's a small gain locally for black, but it's not as good on the whole board as it would have been if black got H5.
Yeah,
with any sort of relative degree of Sente. H5 by itself is not Sente. White could invade the left at that point, but the problem is if white ignores it, the clamp at H3 or the knight's move at J3 are both good for the development of the start point. So he's choosing to enclose now. This is giving us a chance. So H3 or H2, a lot like B3, does pressure the 5 stones a little bit. When black doesn't add the defensive move, then white has ability to come in and bother. So I'm going to do that. And this is just a bit of an asking move. I kind of want to see, is black intending to come out to center something like G4, maybe like some capping method, or is black going to make the exchanges in the corner first? Typical proverbs say we should profit before running, so I would expect B3 to be played. But if he doesn't, that's another gain I can get in the future. Is the Hane at B4.
Black's moves on the M line, M17, 16, and 15, I thought were, it just seems way over concentrated. And I was trying to get a sense of how much of a loss it was for black in my mind. And I guess I would say nearly half a stone, but not half a stone. What do you think?
Yeah, about 2, maybe 3 points. The thing is it's hard to quantify those types of things because we can't say that just because it's over concentrated, it's like bad or not useful. Like white still has the 3 stones that I haven't added the 1/1 move to. So there exists a world, if I'm ignorant to the board, where black might surround those 3 on a large scale, and then black being so thick there makes it very hard for white to live.
Yeah.
But that's way off in the future, and I'm always cognizant of this. So theoretically, it shouldn't be possible, which is why I said if I was black, rather than pushing at M16, I would have pushed on the Q line, and then I would have capped the white stone. I would have made it a bit harder for white. Especially since black enclosed low on the top. I think if white tries to settle and live there locally, I'm not unhappy with that as black. There's no future for white in there. So, but this one, there's still quite a bit of life to white center stones. I'm pretty happy with it. This move seems to have stumped George.
That's fine.
So he's going on the offensive. This was the third option he could have chose. Treat the 5 stones as if they're strong and then attack. And now as white, I need to choose direction. Basically, I can cover h5, which is still a local vital point. This would be improving my approach at o3. Or I could jump something like f8, which would be getting out with my weaker stone and surrounding from the weaker side, which is fundamentally what you're supposed to do. So I think I'm going to play the simple one. This is a case where I think both options were playable, coming from the strong side or coming from the weak side. Because his stone at d10 is high, the stone at d8 for me has many ways to settle.
Yeah.
We will just keep it simple. I will defend the weak stone. Now this brings up an interesting question. D10's future needs to be involved with the 3 stones on the top somehow. So that should be black's plan. I would expect to see black ignore the 5 stones for now, maybe exchange 1 hane. But I would really like to see him do something like the e7 peep and the jump at f10 to make white heavy and start surrounding in a way that gives him, the pressure against my 3 stones on top. I think that would be the right option.
The peep at e9 and jump pressures everything, all white. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So I want to see him try to use this momentum he's been given. Will he come up with the idea? He did not. Okay, so this, I think, is George's first real mistake. Shape-wise, it's not really a good shape. Later, if white gets e6, white threatens a cut and builds eye space, so that's the first negative. It's not on any vital point. The second negative is it's Gote in a position where black should be attacking me. This is going to give white the chance to counterattack because it's missing a tempo. We're going to go ahead and just defend with the flexible shape. Now his peep at e9 is not as good.
His G6, I mean, up to here, tiny little mistakes, 1 point, 2 points. It's really hard to catch up 4-stone game with tiny little moves, mistakes. But this one really affects the entire board. Gets you healthier. He's starting to become weak. Pretty big difference. So we can see white's gaining a foothold now, which he didn't really have before.
His d11 is a very thick move, but I think exchanging f10 for d11 is good for white in this Tawari. If we assume that black originally had d11 and white played any of the jumping moves, d10 is not in good shape anymore. So I think that this is a really good pickup for white. Now he's running to save the 5 stones, so white has an initiative. I'm sort of in a reassessment phase. I have a weak group on the left. He has a weak group in the bottom left. They're kind of in limbo with each other. And I have the 3 stones on top.
I've got a question. I don't know how to phrase it. When or if you're going to be playing upper left 3-3?
I was thinking about it now.
Okay.
Mostly, I'm just trying to consider, there are typically 2 main options from this position if we 3-3. There's the diagonals on the second line where black makes the statement, I'm going to kill you. And then it's a matter of, do either of those actually kill white, or can white get the ko? If black is too thick on the outside, then white is typically dead. And if white can live in the presence of both of the diagonals, the D17 block that makes a ko in the corner, is the ko going to be useful for me on this board? And so for that, I need to really think about and count ko threats. There's not that many ko threats for either side on the board right now, so I'm less inclined to want to reveal that. But the timing of C17 is something interesting. I'm not actually sure if it should be done now or later.
I would think that as a probe, so is black going to go for the kill? Is it going to be a ko? I would want to find that out now. And then just leave it and hope that he goes and kills it with another move, you know?
Yeah. It's certainly valid, I think. When I use this ko, see, I have a bit of a bad habit here, I think. When I use this ko, I like to use it as a tempo gaining move. Like, I never invade that corner expecting to win the ko. I always usually try to set the ko up in the face of some bigger fight so I can win the bigger fight. But I could see the merit for playing it now.
I'm having a hard time seeing where else to play.
I have another move I'm considering. It's just requiring me to read a little bit. And I'm not really sure it's good exchanges, to be honest, the one I'm thinking about. I would clean up my center a lot, though. It would clean up my center a lot. Okay. It might be bad. I want to try it, though. So this one is a bit of a tactic. I don't expect George to answer passively with like D13 or D12. I'm expecting he's going to attach at F11 and try to fight with that or the knight's move. Essentially, E13 becomes a sacrifice to bridge the bottom left and the top center.
Yeah.
And my thinking is I can decide to play in the corner afterwards with Sente, or if he uses Gote to fix the corner, I'm not unhappy with that either, because then I'll gain a move.
So if you had gone 3-3 first, this might not be there anymore.
Right.
And this is I hadn't considered this as a good move.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. It's that good. Like, on the one hand, I do lose something when he comes out at F11, but I gain something in the center. Like, these are the types of exchanges for me that are a bit hard to quantify, because how much is the center going to be worth? But I think if my middle group is strong, I can, at the very least, stand a chance of making up more territory. And plus, this one's not going to damage the corner Aji as much as other moves that could have been played. So I think it's okay. It also looks like it stumped George, which is great for me.
Yeah.
You know, as it were, so to speak. We did play the attachment. Everything is going as I have foreseen it. Yeah. One more time. So this is the one I think, like a lot of Q players, they sort of don't understand this type of tactic, you know, where it's like, why are you playing all these exchanges? Like, why play E13 if you're just going to get rid of it? Oh.
Well, because you got extra moves.
Yeah. It's like sometimes, you know, it's like sometimes the statement you're trying to make is not, I'm trying to take the area, I'm playing it. You know, sometimes you're just doing that to like fake and switch, which is kind of what this one was. It's like, yeah, George captures the one stone, and it's worth some territory. It's not like it's small, but I can still invade the corner. And because his shape here isn't super thick yet, there's a bit of a liberty question with the F13 stones. If I invade the 3/3 now, I don't think he can kill the corner queen. So this one feels like it's a good, a sort of like good flow for white, I guess would be the best way I could describe it. I'm not really sure if there's like a proper terminology for this type of feeling, but it's yeah, it feels like a really good flow.
Ooh.
Oh, just doubling down on this one. I see. It was a bit not unexpected. Yeah, I don't see any reason to put it off any further. I saw his face grimace just a second ago when the 3/3 landed. It's kind of like that feeling like, this doesn't work. There's no way. This doesn't.
Shit can be frustrating when a stronger player comes in and lives where you think he shouldn't. It's just so frustrating.
Well, this is where you have to have the knowledge of the patterns, right? Like, it's your job to prove it's yours. You know, the textbooks say it's black's corner now. But if you don't really understand fundamentally why it's black's corner, it's not your corner at all. Whatever 9P wrote that book, it's his corner, you know. He's going to keep it. But it's like, can you? Okay, so he did block this side. He opted not to play one of the diagonals. So now I do have a ko in the corner if I push and then hane. Setting up the ko now might be a little bit early. So I'm going to ask a question with this hane first.
Yeah. So for viewers, white goes 3/3, and there's still a probe, still information aspect. Black's move clarifies, yes, you can live in ko if you want. Great. Now when we play away, if black goes back and adds a move, that's like if we hadn't played there and he goes and plays the 3/3 for us.
Yep.
It's like slow. So now that we know we have the ko, we can go about our business doing other things.
The very interesting thing about this particular configuration on this board is that the same ko exists at R3. And if white gets a ko in both corners, black cannot win both kos. So already there's sort of a guarantee that white is going to be able to break one of the two corners. Unless black takes a gote to fix one of the corners of ko. Or remove the ko, I mean. So that's also something interesting for white to sort of consider. Now our shape on the outside is very, very strong, very thick. The peep at G9 is a little bit less of a pressing concern. This was that liberty shortage I mentioned earlier, which is why I was not afraid of black responding to my probe in the corner with B15. These squeezes would have allowed me to break out of the corner and live, which would have been a disaster for black. So it's probably good that he didn't pick that variation. But George is still holding on. See how, like, by this point in the previous game, I had already broken George's left side and made up half the handicap from 6 stones.
Yeah.
This point at 4 stones, George still has about 3 stones worth of the handicap, maybe slightly less. So he's still doing better than half the handy at the same like distance from start compared to the 6 stone game. This is why I say, like, sometimes like it's deceiving when you have 6 stones versus 4 stones. A lot of players psychologically are like, oh yeah, 6 stones way harder, but no, actually for me 4 stones is a lot more difficult. This one, okay. I mean, I guess this was his right. He locked down the corner. I'm not gonna die here. All right, I'm not gonna die. Yeah, I'm not gonna die here. I can live in gote. It's small life, but I can live in gote. Okay. Since he's making the moya, we will break the moya. For viewers, he does have the S15 peep that will allow him to connect under and take some territory at the right-hand side in Sente. But for white to defend against it would be Gote. And giving black R12 for free plus follow-up in the center, not the most ideal in my opinion.
Right.
So I'm prioritizing the speed of reduction over maximizing corner territory.
So black has the peep at S15, but if you would have bumped your head at R13, that would have removed it. But that gives him outside thickness, making this move not work very well.
Yeah, it makes this one much harder. Because if we imagine R13 Q12 exchange, if I play this one, he caps for sure.
Yeah.
And here he can cap, but his R12 stone's a little soft. It's not thick yet. So that gives white a leverage if he caps on this position versus if we had exchanged anything at the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we knew he was going to come in. Actually, it's usually better for black to save this exchange for endgame. When white connects and black pulls out, white blocks and black extends to defend. Normally, white has to go back and live the corner and Gote.
Yeah.
But because black has the shape that black has on the top, white has some in-between moves first that I fully intend to take advantage of. So we're going to block, and now we're going to see which defense black is going to prioritize. Extending is the most solid. It would remove the T15 Hane from being a Sente for white. R13 would leave that Sente for white, but would try to have a better connection to the outside. Regardless of which one he played, I was going to be playing this turn. And so this one is like fighting spirit move.
Yeah, black has lots of weaknesses. Now, for viewers, when it comes to life and death, hopefully you see that's the L+1 group. I mean, I don't know how people nowadays think about life and death, but in the old days, we all grew up with James Davies' Life and Death book. And he lays out the L group, the L+1, the J group, you know, this kind of thing.
Those are all the classic, like, must-know corner patterns for anyone who wants to be Don level. Like, there are 3 Dons I teach that don't know what an L group is. And they read it out manually every time. And I'm like, this is a Sumego that, like, kids are taught at 15Q. You know?
Okay.
Get away. I'm going to leave the door open. That maybe.
Okay. Have a good workout.
All right.
Wife's hair is so beautiful. This is Oliver.
So basically, I have a freebie out. His jump here is really submissive. He's worried about his topside group, but it's not particularly good. This one is almost completely Gote. It does remove the cut, but the cut at P17 didn't directly work anyway. So since I have Miai of living locally or escaping to the center, I'm going to do something that I don't typically recommend to beginners, which is Shinogi.
Shinogi is playing away is what?
Shinogi is the idea of leaving a weak group behind for the opponent to attack with the intention of removing the profit of the attack. So the idea is black surrounds me, but all his stones face strong white groups. So him surrounding and forcing me to live results in net profit of 0 for black or losing points. And meanwhile, my R7 should be gaining points. And this is the core principle of Shinogi. You're going to leave the weak group, take territory wherever you can, and have an emphasis on making your opponent's attack 0 profit attack. So here he's stretching down the right side, but it's important for people to realize that he's also attacking my corner with this move.
Yeah.
Because if we imagine him playing Hane at P14 and I have to come out and then he nets me, I can't escape the net because now he's already further ahead of me down the right side. This is an important concept of stone movement the Koreans call hangma, And the Hangma of the R10 stone is quite good. It does put some lateral pressure on my group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a bit of a cheeky little question here. It's a sort of a tactical defense. But the main idea of it is if he cuts and tries to kill the stone greedily, then I have the outside Atari to connect and get additional space to get ahead of that net. And if he blocks the inside Atari, which would be the worst one, my connection is a Sente and I get out anyway. So this one is a bit of a tactic. I think here he chose the wrong one because now he's going to have to deal with the Liberty shortage of the 016 stone, the 016 cut.
This group of his, he's put so many stones in a tiny, tiny area.
Yeah. Yeah, now the corner is virtually alive. And for all the stones that black has added, his topside group is still considerably weak.
Yeah.
So it's a reading exercise, you know.
When you say it's virtually alive, you mean it's alive or out.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, very different from alive.
Yeah. Virtually alive and alive are not necessarily the same thing. It's alive if white spends a move. But because the group has Miai, it's we can consider it right now almost the same as a living group. The time where that condition changes is when white is completely surrounded with no way to escape. Now, this one is an interesting resistance by George. The problem with it is that it leaves the cut and the Hane. So this 016 cut followed by the 013 Hane, which is going to allow white to bother that group a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're going to take them as a freebie. I don't lose anything in the exchange cutting, even though I'm adding one more stone, because black is also filling one more stone inside his own territory. So, and basically the whole thing I'm trying to get here is I'm trying to defend my group without actually spending a move to defend it.
Yeah.
If I earn that tempo, that defense, basically for free, then I never have to play the Gote move to live.
Yeah.
And then I get a third move in a row against his corner in the bottom right, which is huge.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
It's like if we imagine in a vacuum, you have that corner enclosure that he has, and you go, okay, now imagine a world where your opponent gets 3 moves unresponded.
Yeah.
You'd be like, that would never happen, but it's about to happen.
But it's about to happen if he doesn't stop it.
Yeah, but then if he does, if he doesn't stop it, there's even more forcing squeezes that are painful to endure against his topside group here. Of course, he could Tanuki. This move isn't actually Sente, it's just really painful when I follow it out. How much of the handicap do I think is gone now? Maybe, probably more than half. I think getting Q7, R7 was enough to make up at least 1.5 stones worth of the handicap. That might be hard to see. But it comes down to the fact that black's corner now has a big weakness with R3, and the group on the right side is not alive yet.
Yeah.
If we imagine white Hane, black tigers on the first line, that's a bulky 5 shape in the life and death. So the vital point around S12 is actually a killing placement if black is surrounded. So any exchange that self-surrounds the right side should be profitable for white to some degree. So this one still leaves the cutting point, and I am a fervent believer that I need a reason not to double Hane. I don't see a reason not to double Hane. I don't know about you, so I'm going to double Hane. We are going to.
Well, again, it's not Sente. That bothers me. You now have. It's his move.
It is his move.
He can cut you.
He can.
And then take your eye away in the corner. That would worry me. I would really be looking at. This would be like the first time in the game I'd start reading out.
Yeah.
Because if I'm wrong, I'm dead.
Yeah. The problem is that he can't keep me contained anymore. His outside has too many liberty shortage problems. If he cuts at P13, he would have to spend a move in Gote to bamboo before he can kill the corner. Because otherwise I'll get to Atari through Q13 and drive my way out
Oh, I don't
Mhm.
see that.
Well, if he cuts at P13, you'll see it.
Right. Boom.
Mhm.
Black, white, black, white, black. Atari. Is that a ladder? But it's in black's favor.
Yeah, but the right side is getting surrounded.
Yeah, as is the corner.
Yeah, but the corner has more liberties than the right side.
Uh,
That's a capturing
I'm
race. I'm
not
pretty confident
agreeing with
enough to
you.
win. We'll see it. Let's see if he plays it.
I think there's trouble here. Black,
Mm.
white, black, white, black. Atari
Mhm.
out. Boom, 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 boom. Ladder works for black. Heck,
Mhm.
I would do the tiger's mouth save and be so out with a serious attack on the right.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work because once white pushes at Q11 and black blocks and white cuts to start the ladder, when black extends the ladder stone, white descends. And then that threatens the push at R11 and the cut, and it also threatens the net.
Oh, I see. Right you are, right you are. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so stupid of me to not see it. Ah, it was so obvious, and I'm caught up in the little details. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he would have to bamboo the outside first before he can go back to kill the corner. Now this one, okay, might be a small shape difference between this one and the bamboo. I was expecting him to push at M14 because it had better follow-ups, but he didn't do it this time. Since the right side position still works, I'm going to get my third move here uncontested. Now we've brought about the future where black ignored playing
and we
against this
got
corner
3
3
moves in the
times.
bottom right corner. Yeah.
Yeah, the game is becoming quite close now. It's probably less than 2 stones or just about 2 stones at this point. Because black has spent 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 stones in the top side of the board to net very, very little territory, and white spending considerably less than 15 stones in the top right corner has now earned white a lethal attack on the black right side, as well as 3 moves uncontested in the bottom right corner. White is just eking out ahead in efficiency here. And I'm not getting like the numbers based off any like hard math. It's just looking at the exchanges and seeing who came out better.
Yeah.
Black put way too many stones in this area. Black effectively has 3 stones that are worthless in the shape, maybe even 4. The 3 stones on the Q line don't do anything.
Yeah.
They're all on Dame. And the stone at N13, albeit it does open up cuts, that stone, if white ever fixes the cut, that stone is also on Dame. It doesn't contribute to surrounding territory. So those are 3.5, maybe 4 stones in that whole black position that don't do any work. But you're hard pressed to find a single white stone that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
We could look at the white stones at like R14, P14, or Q14, like all the stones on the 14th line, but they all contribute to endgame for white. I have the N18 Hane, so even they're doing work. Like, so it's just black lost a lot in the efficiency race here, and so from those exchanges, white should be marginally better. Plus 3 uncontested moves against this bottom right corner. All of a sudden, it went from being 3-0 in black's favor to being completely even in terms of exchanges.
That's funny how that happens.
Yeah. I wonder if George has begun to realize it. Okay, so this one is a cheeky move. Good job, George. He's aiming at that cut now.
Yeah.
So I have to do some recalculation. Can I Tanuki? And if so, how painful is black's cut if he tries to kill me now? So if we go through the same Atari sequence and black connects, my push in the center, does it work? He can now play S9 and protect both cuts. So it gets a little tricky. Yeah, now I'm thinking this might change the math on that race a little bit. So I'm going to accept his exchange.
And when you accept the exchange, it opens up some vital points.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But the primary goal is just defend, because now his P13 cut is actually working. Because if I do the same drive down when he connects at P10 and I push, or connects P11, I push Q11. He can play S9 and defend both cuts. So this was a really sharp move by George. Good job, George. But the problem with this move is it doesn't give him any eye space. And now my cut is gone. So when I'm accepting all of these exchanges by black here, the sort of hidden thing for white is that with each exchange I've accepted, black is not actually that closer to living.
Right.
For example, if white still plays the S9 peep or armpit, whatever you want to call it, that vital point, black is still only in a one-eye shade or a life and go face situation. So black still has some concerns about his right side position. Now black has managed to lead the group out by sente. Is he going to use the sente here and allow white to get to that point, or is he going to play S8 himself and remove it? And here he's choosing to fly. Okay. What do I think about flying method? If Hane, turn, block, push, block, cut, connect, Atari, connect. Okay. I think all things considered, if I block the outside now, it looks slow. So I'm going to get my fourth move uncontested. But there is some risk to this one. I might have to give up and play the one move in the top right corner if I get sealed in. But to get a fourth move against this black corner, having to play that one step and gote later is a price I'm willing to pay for that. We Hane here for the tactic. Now, most Q players, I expect here they're going to play R5 and S5. If George does that, I'll switch to Q3 and I'll steal the corner away. The cut might be a little more interesting for black, though. Cut, extend, Atari, cut, connect, Atari. That one seems to be working. It's going to be a squeeze. Maybe I get S9 first. There are many options for George here. Descend. Not one of the ones I considered, truth be told, but this one might be just a little bit soft accepting the exchange. This one feels like it's like for sure a game for white. Now his S8 doesn't have any sente threat to cut me.
This move gives black S2.
Yes, it does.
I would have played S4, which also fixes everything and keeps black weak on the bottom.
Sure.
What was the value of your move?
Removing the sente of his S8. So before he has the peep there, which threatens the cut. So that could just be something in the future he could think about doing. Play that one, and then if he moves it, I have to fix, or if I fix, he can move it later. I think S4 is also fine. Almost any way white defends the corner is probably okay. But he did this one. This one can't be right. Like when you have S2, you're completely alive.
Yeah.
This one you're also completely alive, but it's worth less because now white can push S2 and it threatens the cut in the corner. Now, the question for me is S2 big enough now? Probably not. Need to think about this one for a minute. Removing S2 is big, for sure. Can't be, I don't think it can be bad.
Isn't it double gote?
It is, but black S2 is also quite big. We have to compare it to what else white can do on the board. S9 is something I really want to play. And it's probably the move I'm leaning towards the most. I could also start the ko now. We've had that ko looming in the top right corner. Now that this corner has been broken successfully in Sente, if I start the ko in the top left corner, he has nothing in parity for compensation. So if he loses the ko, it's quite heavy for him. Actually, I think if I start the ko now and he loses the ko, I'm just winning. And there's also the fact that his right side group is still quite weak, and I can abuse that in the ko, but I have to count ko threats here. 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, answer 5, answer 6, answer 7, answer 9, 10, 11. Okay, so there's real merit to starting the ko.
Yeah, I just counted, and if you win in the ko, then it brings it right up really close to even. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because he doesn't have the other corner anymore. If black still had the bottom right corner completely intact, then losing the ko wouldn't be as bad. White would gain the corner, but black has the adjacent corner as compensation. In the top right corner territory, black has the top side and the right side to keep that in parity. White doesn't have any points in the center. Black has some on the left that would be okay for black still. But if black loses this corner, then there's just nothing. Black lost all 4 corners, and he's really not going to have a lot of points left. So this ko has actually become quite heavy for black. If black wants to try to kill from here, it has to be the E18 diagonal. But that kill is going to look quite risky with white being very strong in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm going to err on the side of it probably doesn't work, although I haven't actually calculated if he played E18 yet. Most of the time, just bumping at the head and accepting the ko is going to be correct here.
You talk about the ko being heavy for black.
Mhm.
To me, that suggests heavy as in a burden, but not for the health of the black group.
No, it's not about group safety. It's more so about black needs to keep the corner to win the game.
Right. So it's a count heavy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a count heavy. So if black loses, like black cannot afford to lose the ko because losing the ko means losing the game. Whereas for white, if I lose the ko, it was free to begin with. It's literally a flower viewing ko for white.
Yeah.
There's nothing that white has no stake in the ko. Black winning the ko doesn't give black any more of an attack on my middle. And he would only keep the territory that he would have had originally anyway if I didn't play there. So there's no gain for black, but black can't lose. Oh, this one, how unexpected. But actually, this one usually results in white just being alive. So this one is going to be worse, I think, than ko. When black connects in this shape, white can bump or attach underneath. So I'm not sure if George counted here, but this one is pretty much game losing, I think, on the spot.
If black Han is on the inside, seems to me that means white escapes.
Yes.
But black gets those points on top.
Black will get some points on top, yes.
Okay. But if you had played E17 instead, then you also get the honey and you're getting the points.
Sure.
Why would you play this way?
I mean, regardless, black is going to block the top side. If I bump and then Hane, he gets to play the double Hane. I can cut one time, but I have to connect. Or I can switch. That shape of him having the triangle versus him having the Panuki, or the one son, actually, I guess it might be slightly worse to play this one. They both look like they live together. So.
Okay. Yeah, they both. This one feels better, but it's hard for me to work it out. Isn't this his one horrible mistake of the game?
Yeah, probably.
L17 is nearly a pass.
Yeah, if we want to consider like moves that just don't do anything, I would say L17 is probably the worst move he played.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the game losing mistake. I think that mistake was B17. Because Black really needed to fight the Ko to win. And I think not recognizing that he needed the Ko to win was a really big miss. Because now that White is able to just sort of fix and remove all the territory for free, it's like
that's big.
It's huge. Like I can't even. It's hard for me to even quantify how big the swing is.
Yeah, I mean it's really.
Like if Black won the Ko,
Really
if Black
good.
won the Ko, Black is still probably leading something in the neighborhood of half a stone. But without the Ko, Black is probably losing by a similar margin. So you're talking about a whole stone worth of swing.
Yeah.
Depending on who gets the corner here.
8, 10, I'll go with 12.
Yeah, from these exchanges, White should be up by something like 2, maybe 3 points.
2, 4,
I'm going to estimate it at about half a stone for White.
4, 68. Big 40 for White. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 22, 4, 6, 8, 32, 4, 6, 8, 40. It's just point wise. It doesn't seem over for Black, but the position associated with this, White's just going to keep getting points here.
Yeah, I have the better endgame setup, as one would probably say. This is something strong players will often talk about. Maybe it goes a little bit over the head of some weaker players, but very often stronger players are cognizant of endgame, like the really strong, like pros, are cognizant of endgame right out of Fuseki. As you go down the ladder of strength, endgame is pushed further and further back into the game, but usually stronger players are pretty aware of who has the better endgame setup. And during the middle game, they try to be conscious of that around 5 down plus. White has the better endgame on the board because White has the N18 Hane, which is going to remove many points from Black on the top. White has S9 if Black doesn't take S8 exactly right now. Which is going to be quite a big swing for White. Any move White can play around C9 or B9 is going to be net positive for White on the left. He's going for this one. So he thinks the left side is the biggest. Okay. It certainly has a lot of space associated with it. Is there any way for me to answer or walk away from this with Sente? I think so. Okay.
With Sente, I wouldn't think so. Well, Sente, if you give up the stone, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he can afford to ignore it. But I have been known to mess up the large end games quite often, so maybe. There's always a chance when it comes to endgame I'm wrong. Endgame is hard. But this move has a lot of middle game value, so even then, it's just really, really big to get this exchange in before S8. Count. So bottom area is going to be a swing of 3, 6, 3.5, 4 swing. Right now, I'm just counting various endgame places and comparing sizes.
I hadn't considered playing that and then ignoring, but he can't capture the stone, so.
Yeah.
I had decided against that move because of how it affects the corner.
Mm.
I mean, it's big.
Yeah, I have H2 to protect the corner from any weird, like,
that's one of the
C2
benefits
cuts
of you
loose.
playing H2 is it affects the corner, but only the size, not the strength.
Right. So now if he plays B3, I'll block it. If he plays the Tigers, I'll Atari. If he connects, I'll fix. And then everything is tidy in the end game for white. If I had connected, he could play B3, block, diagonal B5, and then connect underneath. And then that would have been a point or two bigger for black compared to this one. Which is ultimately why I chose this one over the other one. It's just maximizing, like min-maxing 1 point in end game. When the game is close in territory, min-maxing is actually important. The bottom area is becoming an interesting place for endgame. It wouldn't surprise me if George played there next. Because if white could get to L4, it was actually quite big.
It was true.
But since he didn't take the Hane in the corner first,
B4 is man, that's big.
Massive. So I'm playing this one more on rote, but it's usually, if you can get this in this shape, it's usually a 5-point pickup.
Yeah.
Like just a hard 5-point pickup. So I don't really think there's much bigger. The bottom side was a 4-point swing, but the left side was a hard 5 pickup, so it should be a point better than playing on the bottom for white. It seems maybe next his plan might be to do something in the center to try to build a little bit. He's got a peep at P6. He's got the peep at G9. He might try some coordination to get some points in the center. Connecting the F17 stone would be black's right. He could do that now. Eventually, white capturing that could become valuable. The top side end game also seems to be something in lieu of a 4-point swing. Yeah. 4 stones, a lot harder than 6 in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think this is also why professionals usually say 4 stones is a good handicap for their teaching games too. A lot of players sort of underestimate the fact that just because they have more stones on the board, you know, they don't think it makes it, they think it makes it harder. In some cases, that's true, but it also makes it way easier when you have a target. Okay, so he is going after something in the center, but this one is just a bit soft. It doesn't really do anything. Okay, so big stem game now. That one would be 6 points Gote. That one would be 2.5 points Sente. I think we'll start here. People probably going, man, another move on the left-hand side. But this one's actually really big because of the follow-up.
Yeah.
It's like 2.5 point swing in Sente with like 1.5 point swing in Sente follow. So it's not a small end game. The next big end games I'm sort of looking at are like J3, which is like Miai to go under or break the center that black wants to build. And T15, which is a big Hane on the right side for white. I wonder if George is considering ignoring this. I mean, he might be. That's one of the beauties of Go, you know?
Yeah.
You can ignore just about anything. It's not always good. You might lose the game for it, but you can.
I've always had a hard time defining Sente because you play your Sente and they just ignore it. Then was it Sente? You know, it's just.
Yeah. I think like the best way to describe Sente to somebody is like a move that the opponent absolutely should respond to. You know, it's not like that, you know, because your opponent's ultimately the bearer of their own fate. They could choose to ignore anything you play. Like here, for example. But the thing that makes Sente Sente is that the repercussion is going to be bigger and or more urgent than anything else.
Yeah.
If they ignore it. Okay, so he's going after the middle now. We're going to go ahead and just slip this one in. I expect now he's going to play K4 and give up the underside to me. If he doesn't, I have a very cheeky way to get into the center of the board from now. Could be a little reading exercise for people watching.
I would have put this white stone at J4 instead of J3. Thinking about the weak group, black's weak group on the left.
Yeah, J3 also has a bit of an aim at it, but only when black descends to protect the bottom territory. If black had played K2 instead, as white, I would have then played the peep at H5, and then I would have pushed at G5. And when black extended to defend, I would have Hane to K4, and he wouldn't be able to cut from then. So that was my cheeky way to break the center. This one creates a good Miai and Yosei. So now that I've gotten this block and these benefits by Sente, I go back to the two captures and I think which one's bigger. The right side capture should be slightly larger than the center capture. And there's also the first line Hane, which is also not small. Not directly Sente, but big if he ignores it. Directly Sente in the sense that he could play the one Atari and then walk away. But
so you don't seem to be considering H5. Why not?
H5 is playable.
I mean, aren't you going to kill something?
Possibly. But he can play H4. At least I think he can. Now you got me wondering if I need to go back and reread this.
That's true. H4.
Yeah, H5, H4. If I come out, he connects. Yeah, if I come out, connects. If I push, it's a cut. I have to. Yeah, I would have to go back and connect to H3. So his H4 would break the that, I think. Just double check.
Well, you can't use it now anyway because that'd be cheating.
I have to answer about it. Yeah. Well, I had already considered the readout. I just now you've got me wondering if my reading had a mistake in it. I didn't think it did, but maybe. Oh, he did answer. Okay, so he thought the left side protection was the biggest. Actually, in this endgame, black and let white cut, but it's big obviously if white gets to cut. Is it worth it to exchange the top endgame now? I think the first two moves are probably the next biggest thing on the board.
Pretty big.
Yeah, these are going to be, this one and P19 are an absolute Sente.
5 or 6.
I'm already playing it out on my real board in preparation because I don't think he can do anything other than cut and capture. So that's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 4 plus combing. There's no combing, so 54.5. Black is at 3, 6, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 25, 30. So Black should be down something in the neighborhood of 10 points now. Plus or minus 2 or 3. Okay, so we got that response.
Any other? I guess there's a question of how many points Black gets in the bottom center,
Yeah.
but that's all Gote for him. You got all these captures everywhere. You can always capture the 3 stones in the center, F13 stones.
Yeah, I was considering that versus the 2 stones. I think the 2 stones were slightly bigger, but they're roughly similar in size. Hard to know for me which one is the better one to capture. Maybe the center 3 were actually better than this one, but
So do you think it's done enough where we go to review, or keep
maybe in the next like 5 or 10 moves. George is doing his last hurrah at the center, and I'm gonna show him why that's a mistake. So there's a quote that I have sort of from Zichen that I really like that says that when you're like players of equal level, mutual building is often like the best way to play Go. You'll have the best chance of winning. But if you're a stronger player playing a weaker player, you should always prioritize mutual destruction, because generally you'll make better exchanges and end up more efficient anyway. So this one offers mutual destruction. He can wipe out the center, but I'll wipe out his center. And if we wipe out both centers, I'm just winning by 50 points. That's an easy counting exercise because his center was slightly bigger than mine. I think depending on how George answers, we might even be able to call it here from this one. I don't think he's going to come back from 10-point deficit. But we can see what George tries to do. Yeah, I think now is a good time.
okay?
Alrighty, all right.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello,
Troy.
welcome back.
That was fun. Thanks.
Yeah. You kept the game favorable a lot longer than the 6-stone game comparatively.
Oh.
Yeah.
4 stones was a much harder slug for me than 6.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
As was predicted. It's because, like I mentioned at the start, a lot of people don't realize just how much of an asset the 2 markstones can be to the stronger player playing against the handicap. Because I mentioned during the 6-stone games, like right early on, that oftentimes when I play against 6 stones, one of my strategies is to break the 2 stones into Wari. Basically, how can I force a series of exchanges where they become bad placement after the fact?
Yeah.
And then by gaining advantage against those 2 stones, you can lose almost 2 stones of the handicap or more fairly quickly. Like in the last game, you lost half your handicap by like move 80 or 90. But this game, you held on to that margin much longer, I think. I don't really have anything to say about the opening until here. Between prioritizing something like A versus B or C, my inclination is to play in the part of the board you haven't developed yet.
Yeah.
For example, if you play the B direction, White's Atari and Tigers is a little bit less impressive. It doesn't have any forward movement towards the bottom. Makes the direction very linear for White. Makes it also more likely that White is going to play this one, which gives Black the first move in the center. It could be here or it could be on the side if that's your style. But what ends up happening is here when you play A and you've got all this at the top side, it's like a good cue for white to come in and break it lightly.
Mm.
Now here, I don't think I'm qualified to tell you A was a mistake. But my impression of the situation, if I was black, is I'd want to play something a little bit harder on white. Like, you've already locked down the corner in a way that guarantees that this corner is going to become thick in the situation where I ever invade. So I would use the 3 stones like thickness now and make the situation for white on the top side very hard, because I'm looking to settle a group in the center or get some stones in the center very fast and flexibly and easily. I can't do that if I'm sealed inside. Also, you don't really care after you play F17 if I live on top, because the top is so small anyway. It's very meaningless for white to live there. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that would have been my impression. These exchanges, I can't say they're bad, but the feeling that I get is that white gains something towards white's objective. Now I have 3 light stones that are hard to surround in the center, and black is a bit over-concentrated.
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to say.
Lance and I talked a little bit about this H2 move. One of the main purposes of playing it over the extend in the corner is that now things like this push and this Hane are not, or this Knight's move are not directly Sente or near Sente. B itself isn't Sente anyway, white can invade, but the follow-up is quite good for black, given that you have Q4. And the push, if white ignores it, obviously it's detrimental. Black can cut and then cut, or cut and then capture. This would be painful for white. So this one had a bit of a whole board implication to it. You enclosed, which is okay, but now I have the invitation to attack. You resisted. I think Lance and I both like this move. And here I had made a statement actually about the position. This D10 stone is not really going to get anything in the lower left corner for you in terms of territory points or anything like that. When I see this stone for black, what I'm thinking your objective should be is how can you get around these 3 stones on a large scale. So if we have that mission in mind, there's a few different things that we can come up with. There's the classic textbook answer, which would be like, make these exchanges, go for the peep and then jump, make white heavy and get out by force. If white gets into the running fight with you, you always have this move as sort of a stability move, and you still have the knight's move at h5 to escape. It's very hard for white to make the claim black's 5 stones are going to die. They're actually quite resilient. But this attack would be moving towards the goal of surrounding these 3 stones from a distance by Sente before white gets a chance to fix with J13. And then you can make use of your thick group on the top side in an easier way. Or we can do the outside peep, for example, in the knight's move, something like this where white is being chased, white's under attack, right? White's heavy, white has to get out. Something like this, there's another jump you can think about playing, and it's accomplishing the same goal. When you play this one, this I think is what we considered your first big mistake of the game. It's effectively a pass move. The 5 stones are the strong stones in this situation. Locally, they're very thick. They don't have cutting points. You can use them like a wall. Here, you're defending your own wall and pushing white to play in the area where white wants to go naturally anyway. So the feeling I get is that it's wrong direction for black here.
I mean, my feeling is I just need to get out.
Yeah,
and
so
behind enemy lines here.
Then I would maybe recommend study some of the variations with this shape. Because actually, when stronger players are playing these sort of 3-3 positions, and this is what I learned in the class I took with Tyrants Pro, the pros are only really viewing this group one of 2 ways. At the point that black makes a wall, it is either already strong or it's Aji. This group should never be treated like a weak group that needs to escape. Because ultimately what ends up happening is if you sacrifice the 5 stones, they're paid for. White had to spend 5 stones inside its own territory, in this case even 6, because I played h2, to capture those 5 stones. It would have been the same as if white had developed the big area, black invaded and then died. As long as black had something good on the outside, the 5 stones can be thrown away. So the pros are
elsewhere at this point, like F10, like this?
Possible, but you can squeeze even more value out of it with something like this.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
having the option to get that extra Hane and then doing something like, for example, this is a really good method because the group can be treated as a strong group. And at any point, if you decide it needs to live, you can play b5 and it's very hard to kill. But that's your choice. You always have to do the count because for white to kill it is never Sente, it's Gote. So the swing value is whatever the size of the kill is divided by the two moves, right? White has to play a move, black ignores it, white plays the second move and Gote. If we consider the total value as being something like 24 points divided by 2, maybe 30 points divided by 2, any two moves you get that are worth more than 15 points already compensate for the sacrifice, and it's fine.
Very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you're going to play this way, you have to understand how you're supposed to treat the 5 stones. They're already strong. Use them that way. Because if you backpedal with something like G5, G6, and say, no, wait, they're weak, then that really means that you didn't have the right to make this exchange in the first place. At that point, it would have been a better direction for you to cover me from the top and give up the side.
Yeah,
Right,
I never thought
like
about that kind of move, but I was just afraid of you playing, being ultra aggressive and cutting me or something, and then ending up with a lot of trouble.
So then, if that was the case, then you needed to go there.
Okay.
Because what happened is you tanukied and said, you made the statement, my 5 stones are strong enough. I checked that statement. You said, no, they really are strong enough. I say, are you sure about that? And you're like, wait a minute, no, I'm not sure anymore. Don't admit the mistake. It's not even a mistake. They were actually strong enough. You just have to have confidence in their ability to do their job. What's their job?
So the way that I've been looking at it is that A is a half move help, so it's helping the black stones from a distance. And then B is a valid attack against those 5 stones. And now I'm surrounded, so I get out.
Yeah.
And in that process of getting out, I keep being weak.
Yeah. The problem is there's too much space. There's way too much space. If I want to attack you, like if I'm going to make the claim you are attacked, I'm going to play here. Because now we're only one line away from each other. You don't have a lot of space to make eyes. But if I'm jumping and staying 3 spaces away from you, where is the kill against this black group locally? There isn't one. Black is going to live quite easily with these 5 stones if black chooses to. So that's why I say like the 5 stones are quite resilient, at least for high level players. Pros will ignore these 3, 4, 5 moves in a row. Every move white plays in Gote against it is considered usually a minus as long as black can get something equivalent swing value elsewhere on the board. For black, your mission is my 3 stones. You need to make your top over concentrated thick group useful. If you don't, that's just going to be a game for white.
So I was thinking about the Hane. I was thinking about the Hane at B3, but I mean, would there ever be a reason not to play that move? I was a bit worried about you peeping, for example.
No, the peep is not. The peep isn't good because you can cover.
Yeah, okay.
If the cut happens, that's not the cut. If the cut happens, you can just block. Like this is a simple variation. I'll capture it, but I didn't gain anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Like black shape is just incredibly resilient to attack from this point. But then you play G5 and it kind of like spoiled things. So now white gets to go in the direction white wanted. This one was also something I wasn't unhappy to see in the Tawari. Truth be told, I'm not really sure what a better place to play for black would have been. Probably nothing on the left, to be honest. Maybe still B3. But I was very happy to get these exchanges essentially for free. Because if we look at the net positives between A, B, C, and D, white is really getting actively better in the center and making use of white's earlier exchanges, whereas B and D are not contributing to black's game plan on the board as a whole. Like I wonder where their future is, and it's hard to see what that future is going to be. So this one, I make the sacrifice to connect out and just clean up the center shape. And then my logic was, now I have, Lance and I were talking about it, the co. I was really debating whether or not we should do this one now. I wasn't sure how you were going to answer. If black takes the thickness, black can attack white. The thickness would be basically any move that tries to like threaten to kill. Like normally this would be the sequence that black would use to kill white, but black could play something like this instead and give up the corner to white in a way where white can live and black stays thick. I wasn't really sure about the timing. Maybe it's correct now. I don't know. I figured this one is probably okay because if you resist, I connect the outside cleanly. And if you don't resist, it's just a good exchange for white. From this point, I can go and play the ko anyway. And if you took the gote to fix the ko yourself, I'm thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
Yeah.
So you resisted, which I think is probably correct. And then you play this one. And now we have this sort of interesting dichotomy here. There's a ko possibility in both corners, which means even though you spent the move to lock this one down, and it looks like the statement black is making is I have two corners, you have one corner. Unless you can kill the top left corner, I can make a ko in both, and you can't win two kos simultaneously. It's impossible. So you will have to give up one ko to win the other, and I will take the other corner as a result of that. So even though you played this move in gote thinking, okay, at least my assumption is you're thinking, okay, I have two corners now. You actually only have one corner, and so this move is kind of a pass.
Okay. So if I were to take the corner, something like P3 would make more sense in this case to avoid the ko?
To avoid the ko, yes. You would want to lock down a little more hardcore. Yeah. Because now it's just the one corner in the top left as opposed to potentially two. Because this shape does have the benefit that if white invades, you have either of these kosumis to go for the kill. The problem is going for the kill requires you to be thick in the center. Otherwise, I can run into the middle and escape. So since the bottom right corner isn't thick, and since I have center support for the top left corner, both corners should be invadable for white successfully, which means the only other result you could go for would be contain white and play the ko. But then I have two kos. So either way, I'm going to get one corner at some point. So I start the initial one to see what you're going to do. You choose the ko. This will just be to show it for the viewers. The ko happens when white pushes and plays like this. This is the ko. So there's this ko for white now at any time. It's a good resource for white to keep in mind. Hane is big for fixing my knight's move. Then you attack the corner. Now here, the important thing to note is that whether or not black gets A is a question of territory. White is alive if white spends a gote to live now. White is alive if black plays first. So life and death situation, white's already covered. White's going to live. If white plays a move now, white probably losing in gote, with the exception of maybe this one. But this is typically a bad exchange. If we just imagine like this to live, white's alive, but it's gote. And if I give up A, like I did in the game, the standard result would be white also coming back here to spend a move in the corner to live in gote, typically. So if I'm going to be alive in gote more often than not, anyway, it's only a matter of territory whether or not I should defend the corner. And the right side moyo is becoming bigger than the corner, I thought, the points I'd be saving. So breaking is the next natural thing. You did take this now. I would have waited until endgame because the problem with doing this here is that once white turns, now it's bringing in the question of the A Aji, and basically white is playing for a tempo here. If I can get black to have to defend this group in gote and get myself sufficiently ahead into the center, I never have to play the move to live in gote, and I get another move uncontested. So if we look at it, the bottom right corner originally started as a 3-0 corner for black. You had 3 moves to my 0. Right now, the corner is 3-1. Keep an eye on that number. If we go back to the very beginning here, and I asked you, imagine a future where white gets 4 moves uncontested against black's bottom right corner. Black doesn't answer 4 moves in a row. Would you ever think that that was ever going to happen?
No.
Count along with me. 2, 3,
3,
4.
4. There's just Go ahead and think of it.
But then again, I guess in all the exchanges I made when you were
Mhm.
playing those moves in the corner, I wasn't
Mhm.
really doing anything very constructive, right?
Right. So the
Um,
problem is because you came here too soon, you exposed your own weaknesses on the top side by removing the limits. Not only that, but you created a position on the right side once I turned that is also not a living group. So now you have the issue of the A stone, and you have the issue that there's a new group that didn't exist before that is now not alive. If white, for example, gets to B, locally the shape is dead. Like that's the vital point to remove the I space for black. So now we're in this dilemma where black is thinking, okay, do I defend the right side or do I answer A? But all the while, you still owe me a move for Q7. You haven't responded yet. So you also need Sente. So what ended up happening was by rushing to this S15 move, you ended up losing your tempo almost immediately by committing to the endgame here. You can leave it because I'm not going to rush to play it yet. Me playing it is not a matter of life and death for you. It's just a matter of points in the corner. So
which way would you go now as black?
I would just take the base
Okay.
and treat that as my answer to white's press. Because now when white comes in, I push, and if white extends, I can attack. Now you have something productive to do. And then later,
Big difference.
later if you get this one, now it's less meaningful because when black comes back and defends, there's really nothing further for white to do in the center. The right group is already alive and or out. It's sort of in limbo with white's Q7, but my Q7 group is significantly weaker than your right side group because you have a base and you have eyes, and I have neither of those things. So this would have been a much better game flow for black. So I think the real miss here is that when white slipped away, you sort of took the bait and went after the end game. As white, I'm never going to passively surrender in the corner and just take Gote to live. I'm going to try to break my Sente, which is what ended up happening. Now here we have to keep in mind, it was originally 3-0, now it's 3 versus 2. So at any point, black needs to be aware of what's happening. Of course, it's hard to play this one now, because if white makes some exchange like this, and then maybe white is even good enough to go here next, it gets a little bit risky on the right side, right? So now you have this awkward situation where my block is doing work two ways. I'm from a distance attacking one, but I'm also hurting two. This was a big gain for white. We took the base, and so I used my Aji. This was a bit slack. I think you needed to give this up to white. Because now if I connect, the connection is Gote. And black can get the first move at S6 to block the corner and threaten to go inside. If white descends, you can jump, and you're threatening the double surround, right? You're threatening potential Hane at A later, and you're also threatening some knight's move at B. And if you're able to bother, let's say, just make a variation really quick. Let's say you're able to bother the white group enough, this surround is going to be an absolute Sente where I have to come back and give up that move again. And then you earn that tempo back that you lost at S15. Something like this could still be playable for black. Of course, the fighting, you have to recognize the bottom left corner's resilience and be able to live that shape. But that's a different topic entirely.
Guys, we're up at an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And we could still spend an hour on this. But I need to get on with the rest of my day. I can leave this running.
Yeah, this will be the last thing I think we should go over, because I think this is where George actually loses the game.
Okay.
Up until now, even with the small, the small cumulative mistakes that you've made, I think black was slightly better here. Losing the bottom right corner, however, in the macrocosm of things in this game, changed this ko a lot. When black had the bottom right corner, the ko only keeps parity for white. You have the one corner, I have the one corner. When I remove the bottom right corner, now if I remove this corner, it's just a straight loss to black. If you don't fight the ko and win it, you will lose the game immediately. So it's going to be that close if white is just allowed to live. So at this point, the only thing that black can do is accept the ko and fight it. You have to keep the corner. Otherwise, the bottom right corner is just a loss. It's just a gain in points, pure gain in points for white with no compensation. So you need this. You need to keep the corner. The minute that you don't do that, and I'm alive, the game shifts in white's favor by probably the value of an entire stone. Black was maybe half a stone ahead before that. White is maybe half a stone ahead now. And if we consider the endgame areas on the board, the endgame is significantly better for white than it is for black here. Right? So
Why is that always the case?
stronger players, maybe it's intuitive, maybe it's just through their training, typically tend to be conscientious, even if they're sub-conscientious about it, the end game from the middle game or even the opening in many cases. It becomes a real focal point. And once you study end game, you look for exchanges that maximize end game early on in the middle game and the opening even. Because often it becomes part of your quote unquote benefit for making certain exchanges and certain trades. And so you need to be aware of it. And so stronger players, they just tend to be aware of the end game more earlier in the game. That's why that happens. But yeah, I think that was the last big thing. Once white got the ko, there's not really much more to talk about. We just go into an end game, and now it's just a matter of counting big places. White's maybe 2-3 points ahead. And then after white gets to break all these areas sort of by cente, the lead grew to about 10 points, maybe 13 by my counting. And so, yeah, that was just a matter of losing points in endgame. But yeah, all right. It was very awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Lance,
fun
for
game.
recording and commenting during the game. Thank you, George, for playing
Yeah.
it. George, if you'd like to go a little bit more in depth on the game after Lance leaves, I'm more than happy to stick around like usual.
Cool. We can do that. Thanks,
Chris,
Lance.
thanks so much for your expert time.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to do these with you on Thursday.
Okay, viewers, hope you enjoyed it. Catch y'all later.
Yeah.